Oh, good, we're recording.
Oh yeah.
About the
Yeah.
name.
We don't want to miss anything. I could tell y'all were a little tense.
It's just
It wasn't
baiting.
him.
Yeah, it was just baiting. I'm having a blast. I caught fish. I'm having a good time.
Okay,
Talk it out.
what happened? This is why we're here. Come on.
You want me to say it or no?
We can
Daniel
be
just made a
effective.
joke that made me mad.
Say it again.
Daniel made a joke that made me mad.
He made a
Okay.
joke that made you mad. Okay.
Okay. All right. And Haynes, you're not getting off the hook on this one, so it's not all
Don't get cozy.
no pun intended. So Daniel makes a joke, which is the trigger.
Mhm.
Okay. Peyton, which of the seven emotions did it set off for you?
Anger?
Okay. And how did you respond?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I wrote him down.
Shut down was
Look at the unhealthy. Look at the
Yeah,
list of
probably.
unhealthy.
I don't have a list, but I'd probably shut down.
Yeah.
no, she did shut down.
Retreat, isolate, withdraw. Okay. Now, what's the healthy alternative to retreating and isolating and stuffing it?
I'm trying to remember.
This is a really, really good example. So thanks for sharing.
I'm trying to remember. Do you remember?
Hmm.
I need the chart.
Well, just think about it logically. If
What's-
an unhealthy response is to stuff it and to hold it in,
What's the opposite?
what would be the opposite of that?
Talking about it.
Yeah.
Let it out. I just
Let it
actually
deal
heard.
with it.
I actually heard today that if you look at autoimmune diseases, the same profile of people always get them, and it's the people that repress their anger. And I think that's so interesting because I am really bad about that.
You may have to say that again. That's really good. And I'm gonna share my screen because I'm gonna ask y'all a question. About this here. Okay. Can you guys see the roadmap?
Mm.
Yes.
Say that again.
I was listening to it was either a psychologist or a doctor today, and he was talking about he started to notice the people that have autoimmune diseases all had the same personality profile. They were all people who were really sweet. They cared about others' feelings. They didn't have good boundaries. They couldn't tell people no, and they stuffed their anger. They repressed their anger. They did not let it out.
So there's physical harm
Mhm.
to stuffing it.
Yeah. And Peyton, honestly, you probably learned that from me.
That's why I just pulled the roadmap up. There's something under mindset and left of mindset that well, first of all, and the question is, do you agree that stuffing it is unhealthy? Because some people may say, well, I don't want to cause a
Just be
scene.
nice.
Yeah.
Well, in some situations, because like, I mean, in that situation, he knew that it made me mad, and like talking about it wasn't going to do any good. So
I disagree with that. I don't disagree that there's situations and there's better situations than others to deal with things, but I would caution you against coming to that conclusion that because it's going to be easy to come to that conclusion every time. I'd just be better to let it go. Just be better to let it go.
that's true.
I'm not saying the time and place every time, because you're right. Sometimes it can be more awkward in the moment. But I'm also saying don't come to the conclusion every time to just stuff it.
Yeah.
Because if you do that with Daniel, then you're likely going to do that with Haynes as well. And the result of that, of years of that, is exactly what we talked about with Haynes last time, is that turns into resentment, and then it turns into a massive blow up at some point. So I get it. I hate conflict as much as you do, but I am sorry if I've modeled that for you, because that is not, as Christians, it is okay to be angry. We're supposed to be angry. Now, we're not supposed to sin in our anger, but the emotion of anger is not wrong. It's actually very justified, and it tells you that somebody overstepped.
So part of your, Peyton, part of your stuffing it comes from the roadmap that mom's responsible for you. Part of it comes from the roadmap that I created for you. That part of it. And I'll give you an example. The fact that we talked a little bit about this last week, that you had so many moves, especially leading into ninth grade, and your friendships were all, you were pulled out of Hoover and moved to Gulf Shores. You had to start all over as a ninth grader. We know that those 4 years in Gulf Shores was hard. It was hard. There weren't a lot of people that shared the same values you did, the same standards you did for grades and sports and all those kind of things. And so finding friendships was hard. And by the way, everything I'm saying right now is not your fault. None of this is none of this. I'm pointing to myself more than anything because I'm the one that, pulled the trigger on us moving multiple times and all that. So if you want to blame anybody, you can blame me on this. Do not blame yourself on this. And what happened was it made your deeply held friendships were kind of few and far between. So they were precious to you. I'm not saying this to joke. I know we've joked about it in the past, but you had a couple of dating relationships, you had a couple of homecoming dates. I'm not saying that to laugh. But it was just, and I always said there's a guy out there who's not from Gulf Shores. There's something. When you leave here, you're going to go on to bigger and better things, right? But those relationships, I believe, because of your roadmap leading up into the mindset, were so few and far between. Therefore, they became precious to you. Therefore, you're willing to take on a lot of the heat, and you're choosing to not deal with things because your mindset tells you it might put the relationship at risk.
That makes sense.
And you don't want to put the relationship at risk because your relationships have been hard to formulate over the years because your dad moved you around so much. This has nothing to do with your ability to make friends. And I think you're a very, very good friend. And I think you're an awesome friend, and you're a loyal friend, a very trusted. It has nothing to do with your ability. If there's anything if your ability to make friends has been shaped over the years, it's been because of the road you've been on, not because of your lack of talent or anything like that. It's just been the road that you've been on that shaped it. And your fear, so I would add fear in there. All right, fear is one of the emotions that these things trigger is fear. Okay, so if there are, I'm just going to make this up. Y'all know better than we do. If there are things that Haynes does that frustrate you, you're going to swallow them. You're not going to deal with them because you have a fear of losing Haynes. Okay, because and it's and it's not necessarily because there's a wedding coming in 7 weeks or whatever it is. It's because of how difficult the road has been, friendships and boyfriends and those kind of things. Now you find a great guy, and there's a fear of losing him if you challenge him on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
If that continues, it will hurt your marriage.
100%. Without
if you continue to stuff the things that Haynes does that frustrates you, she just said it. It's going to impact you physically, and it's going to hurt your marriage because the resentment is going to build. You will be better off if you deal with them now you got to learn to deal with them, because right now the anxiety of dealing with them is hard for you. This is the thing you get from her is the anxiety of confrontation. There's a way to handle confrontation. In fact, we're going to look at DISC today in a way that doesn't have to give you that anxiety, but you got to learn those skills. You got to learn to deal with those kinds of things. We'll tell you later on about a scenario that happened at the FedEx Kinko's place earlier this week. Confrontation where I loved it. I was in the middle of it. She hated it so much she had to walk out and go to the car because she hated it so much. We'll talk about that a little bit, but make sure you follow Peyton what we're saying. Trigger events are causing you anger and simultaneously fear, and so you're choosing to retreat and not deal with stuff. And then the frustration with Daniel, and in some cases, my guess with Haynes, is beginning to build, and that is going to build and build and build if you continue to stuff it. Now, I said Haynes, you're not a, yeah.
Let me say one more thing too. Peyton, the irony of that is we think that people won't like us if we deal with things, but I would venture to say that they would actually respect you even more if you deal with it, because people don't respect people that don't stand up for themselves. Okay, so we don't know the situation, we don't know what was said or anything like that. I'm just saying that if you become a doormat, it causes so many problems for not only you, but your relationships too. So
There's an unfortunate myth in the world. The problem is most people believe the myth, and this is why it's a problem. There's a myth that confrontation and anger have to go together. People believe that you have to deal with confrontation in anger, or they just let their anger rise to a level. The most effective people that deal with confrontation take anger out of it, and they do it. They're not. Would they do it without being mad? And it removes that anger. The problem is we don't. People in this world don't have EQ. I'm pointing to the screen over here. They don't have EQ, and so the emotions ramp up, and it leads to anger, and then that feeds into the behaviors. Right? See that on the map? That's what the map tells us. The emotions run high. We don't know that they are because we lack self-awareness. And then we move into the behavior box, which is where we begin dealing with conflict, and we deal with conflict with our emotions high.
which that would have been just as wrong as if you had blown up back at him. Because then you would, your emotional, it would have been an emotional response. So there's a happy medium. To blow up is not the response either. And to stuff, it's not the response. The response is a controlled,
That's right. That's right.
a controlled comeback.
And remember, I was doing this last week, right? Emotions and logic. There's other people that are high logic. They're just cold as ice, high logic, no emotions. Neither of those are good. The problem is when emotions are high and again, looking at the map, and we move into behaviors, or logic is really high and emotions are low and we move into behaviors. She just said it. You got to get them in control, then move into the behavior, which is when you begin to deal with conflict. What'll happen, what you'll notice is when you do that, you have less anxiety. I'm not saying none, but you have less because you're not so fired up. You're able to balance it out, and then your behaviors reflect that, right? So let's go back to the Daniel scenario. We said Haynes is not off the hook. So trigger event triggers Peyton. Maybe your trigger event is Peyton's now mad. Okay.
Is that true, Hank?
Or do you can
Well, I start poking her because she won't perk up if I don't, like, she'll just isolate and curl up in a ball until she talks to me, and I try to get her to talk
Okay.
to me.
All right. So you're sort of bothered, maybe not out of control, but there's
Unsettled.
there's a little unsettling to you that the way she's reacting is a little bit of a trigger event to you. So which of the 7 would you say?
I need this chart.
I know, me too.
Do you have this, can you name the 7 emotions?
Y'all need the 7?
Yeah.
Yes, if you don't mind.
Joy, anger, sadness, surprise. Surprise is the 2 seconds when something happens where, oh, okay, got it. So, and that's a real thing, because some people are surprised by everything. Some people are surprised by nothing. Nothing surprises me because I think people are idiots. But anyway, joy, anger, sadness, surprise, fear, disgust, and contempt. So something's triggered, and whether it's Daniel's joke triggers Haynes, or Daniel's joke makes Peyton mad, which triggers Haynes.
I got 6.
Let me ask you this kind of as a side note. This may not be an example of this, but there probably will be at some point. Was it a significant enough thing that because it bothered Peyton, it should have bothered Haynes?
Well, he didn't hear it.
I didn't hear it, so I don't even know what the joke's about. But I just paid check now.
You still don't know?
No,
Okay. All Okay, I got you.
Like I
Okay,
was trying to
this
get it
is-
out of her when we walked in here because
Okay,
we were
this-
finally.
Yeah.
This
Right.
is interesting. This is interesting because
Take it. Yeah.
if your fiance, well, okay, you're one of your best friends has said something that upset Peyton to the degree that she is shut down and doesn't want to tell you, this is pretty significant. So,
It's not that I didn't want to tell him, it's that we were literally running in here to jump on here and I didn't have time to. Like,
okay,
Fair enough.
but it's still a scenario because his friend has now said something that was upsetting enough. Peyton, you don't get upset that easily. So if it was enough to shut you down like that,
Daniel done.
Jump in, but I mean, so I just want to validate Peyton. We hear you. The timing, this was weird timing, right? Right. Now, I don't know when was the joke made? Like 3 seconds ago or 3 hours ago?
like
Like 20 minutes
20
ago.
minutes ago.
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
yeah,
so
okay.
it literally
So
happened.
that's a,
Okay,
it's a true.
I thought it was
true
while
point.
we were at the lake. Okay.
But let's, so that's a good justification that it's that fast and y'all didn't have time to deal with it. We hear you. We hear you. Let's pretend like it was 30 minutes before that or an hour before that. I
It's
think
not
where
like-
you're going with it is Haynes's best male friend says something to his best female friend, his fiance.
Yeah.
And I think where you're going with it, you can jump in, is
Why not learn from it? Yeah.
that should bother Haynes.
Well, and Haynes is somewhat involved whether he wants to be or not, probably. Yeah. So, yeah, I just thought, I mean, it's a great example. This is a real life scenario. So, I mean, if we had time to talk through it, let's
Yeah.
talk through what his role is in this.
That's right. And we're validating that we hear you. It was only
Right.
three
This
minutes
is-
before the meeting. It would not have been possible to deal with it. We hear you. I'm just saying, let's pretend like it had happened an hour before that.
Peyton, is it too personal that you don't want to share it right now? And that's totally fine if it is. Like if you just don't want to go there, I'm saying if you want to work through it, we can all work through it together. If not, then
Not
just,
really.
okay,
Okay.
totally fine. But it's just something to be aware of that Haynes now is her husband to be. It's becoming your business real fast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
And-
same thing for you, Peyton. If Shelley says something to Haynes and she's offended him and he's legitimately upset about it, whether you like it or not, you're in it. You know, I'm not saying you're the first go-to person because those two people need to deal with it, but now she's hurting you because now she's hurt your fiance. You know what I mean?
And I'm not trying to like scare people or like blow this thing, but I'm not trying to make this dramatic. I think is what I'm trying to say. But Peyton, you've always like shared, as far as we know, like been an open book with us. And so for you to not want to share it, which we fully respect that, no pressure at all. But it would indicate to your dad, and even though I'm the teacher, we're not your parents, but as your dad, that's a little bit of a red flag to me that this is that hard for you to share. This is a big deal to you.
I mean, I might like in 2 hours, but not like right now.
Yeah. All I'm saying, and again, I'm not trying to over dramatize this thing, but it obviously is bothering you. Is all I'm saying. It's obviously bothering you, and therefore that's got to translate. It's got to bother Haynes. That not only is it bothering you, but it involves Daniel too. Haynes, this has to bother you. This has to bother
Because you're the protector. Remember, we go back to the roles and responsibilities. You're going to be the protector of Peyton, and hopefully, if y'all are blessed with children, of them too. You are the man, and you have this hedge of protection around your family now. So, yeah.
And your disc and your EQ would say reports would say, you know, it's not your nature. And I'm kind of there with you. I'm kind of in ours are very similar to where I tend to kind of want to just kind of let this stuff go. You may remember last week I used the example of contempt, trigger events. For you, maybe contempt is the one where, like me, leaving those dinners, I just don't care. Leaving those dinners, I just don't care. If there's people that are offended that I'm leaving, I don't care. I should care. I'm me not caring is a sign of immaturity, social immaturity that I have to work on. And so if for those of us like I do, and I believe like you do, Haynes, that struggle with contempt to some degree, we've got to work on that because it's that emotional maturity we have to develop.
And I will say, and then we need to get on to
Yeah.
this, but Haynes, I love the fact that you noticed that Peyton was upset, because a lot of men don't notice when there's a shift in emotion. So kudos to you for that. And to try to talk through it, because like we talked about that 2 weeks ago, your role is to step in and say, hey, what's going on here? And so you showed leadership by doing that. So good job on that.
Yeah. And those of us, I'll add this, then we'll go to disc. Those of us that do struggle with contempt, Leslie has taught me, and this has only been within the last couple of years, she's taught me about this concept of what's called dismissing. So let's say when this call is over, you guys talk this out. Let's just pretend. And let's say when Peyton finally verbalizes it at some point, Haynes, to you, it doesn't sound like it's a big deal. And you might, if you like me, and maybe you're not, but in the past 20 something ish years, I would have been like, it's no big deal.
He
Like,
didn't mean anything by it.
hey, he didn't mean anything. That was nothing. I mean, come on. Hey, Daniel, he didn't. Okay. Well, if that's the response, what you're basically saying is, Peyton, your emotions from this are worthless. So you got to be a safe place where she can unpack those, or what's going to happen is she'll continue to not unpack them with you. And that's when the wounds and the scars build up. Okay. I'm not saying that's how you would respond. It's just kind of like dude to dude, man to man right here. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter how goofy they sound to you, or if whatever, you got to validate they're real to Peyton, however it made her feel, that's real. Be a safe place where she can get those out.
And same for Peyton with Haynes.
Yeah.
And I think y'all are probably very good at this. That's because y'all are such great friends and y'all do trust each other so much, because it goes back to our triggers from all of this stuff on the left side of the chart.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to disc. Thank y'all for sharing that very personal situation. Because that's so real life right there. I mean, those are the things that happen, and they can derail you quickly. But you gotta,
And frequently.
what'd you say, Haynes?
And frequently.
And frequently?
Hmm.
Yes.
And frequently or infrequently?
No, and frequently.
And
Like,
frequently,
Dan
yeah,
makes
yeah.
Peyton mad often.
Dan, I told him this coming in here. Like your siblings can get under your skin like differently than anyone else. Dan is a close second to Brooke for me. Like he can just do it in a way that nobody else can to me. I don't know why, but he knows he can too.
Does he enjoy it a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's the problem. That she enjoys it.
Yeah. I get it. I know what you're saying.
All right, can y'all see the screen?
Mhm.
Yes.
All right, so I don't have a slide to share, but here's what I want you to visualize. Peyton, do you have a pen or a pencil or something there? Okay, draw this out so y'all can see it, right? Draw a big cross sign, a big plus sign. In the upper right quadrant is a big D. Bottom right is the I. Lower left is the S. Upper left is the C. Okay. Now on the axes, we're going to label the axes. The horizontal axes over on the DI side, write the word extroverted.
We do.
On the left side, write introverted. On the bottom of the vertical axis, write the word people. And then on the top of the vertical axis, write the word tasks. Okay, so you're going to get a 3-hour disc class in about 3 minutes here. Here's the cheat sheet version of how to do this. Okay, view those axes as ropes playing tug of war. So introverted and extroverted are playing tug of war. Okay, now let me reset the definition of introverted and extroverted for y'all. It's different than what most people think. Introverted and extroverted has nothing to do with people. Okay, wipe that out of your minds. It has nothing to do with people. It has to do with, where do your behaviors live? Your body language, your emotions, your arms, your hand gestures, where do your behaviors live? Outside of you or inside of you? Where do you think my behaviors live? Me, Todd. Shocker. Okay. I am a double extrovert. Okay. My behaviors live outside. I'm gonna show you how to plot yourself, okay, and how to spot other people. Okay, because you need to learn your primary and secondary categories, and you need to learn how to spot them, especially with each other. Okay. So for me, if extroverted and introverted were playing a tug of war, which one would win and by how much?
Sure.
A lot.
Which one?
Extroverted.
Extroverted wins by a lot.
A lot.
Okay. So go way out to the right of that axis and put a little tick mark on the axis. Okay. Now, tasks and people are playing tug of war. Okay. So would you rather go sit in a coffee shop with 10 people in a circle yapping? Or would you rather sit at a computer and do a project? Or would you rather go be in your truck out doing tasks, or in your garage on tools, whatever tasks? They can be outdoorsy tasks, they can be garage tasks, they can be computer tasks, whatever tasks or people. For me, which one would win and by how much?
Task.
He's more people.
Would I rather be around people, or would I rather be doing tasks?
People.
I said task, but Peyton said people, and she probably knows you a little bit better. But
Well,
I'm thinking of the dinners at the social things.
Well,
where
that's true.
you would rather just go and get something done
Yeah.
than sit around and talk about it.
So it's almost a 50-50 tie.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Look at
I'm
us.
one notch. Tasks win by one notch. Okay. So Peyton, put tasks up one notch. Now connect those two and put a dot, which is in the D. It's in the bottom right of the D quadrant, right? When you plot those like geometry or is it geology or geometry?
Geometry.
Okay. Yep. There you go. That's where I am. I am a primary D. Now I'm a secondary I. I'm really close to I. That's why I say I'm a double extrovert. I'm a DI. Okay. D is dominant. D is dominant. I want to solve problems. I want to argue. I want to win. I want to fight. I want to be loud. I want to tell jokes. I want to be the guy speaking. I want to be the quarterback. I want to be the pitcher. I want to be the point guard. Right. I want to do all those things. That's me, the D. The I is the people. The connecting with people, talking, being in groups, influencing. Yep, being an influencer. All those kind of things. Okay. So you guys plot yourselves, and then we'll plot Leslie after
Tell
that.
them the S and the C, what they mean. Should we tell them that?
Yeah, S is steadiness. It has to do with pace. If you end up being a high S, you want slow pace. You do not like change. I probably shouldn't be telling y'all this yet. You plot yourselves first.
Wait, the D. I'm writing down what they all stand for.
Oh, just,
Well, we need to know what they stand for to plot ourselves.
that's what I was saying.
No.
The
No,
introvert, extrovert,
stop. Yes.
just on
Y'all
introvert.
are getting ahead. Introvert, Peyton, if introverted and extroverted for you got in a tug of war, which would win? Where do your behaviors live?
I'm probably like here. Where are you? Further? Like here.
Got it?
All right, and then task and people.
I'm about here.
I know where Peyton is.
All right, and put your dot. Does that put it in the C category?
Yeah.
So, yep. So, Peyton's probably going to be a little bit surprised, but that's close. That's primary C. C is compliance, policy, procedures, rules. There's a right way to do everything.
Oh, there is.
Yep. Toilet paper goes on. There's the right way with the roll out.
Brooke and I got a screaming match about this in the car when he was explaining it to us because we're so opposite.
Okay, did you already plot Haynes?
Now do
Mhm.
Haynes, yeah. Where's
Okay,
Haynes?
where's Haynes?
We're both right here.
I'm in the top.
You look so much
Okay.
alike.
Let's see. I think Haynes is a primary.
Cameron and Justice were polar opposites.
That does not surprise me.
No, I think most people that get married probably are,
Yeah.
or just rare. Was this me?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
there's Haynes. Okay. And y'all have this. So all I want you to, so let me tell you about natural and adapted. Natural is the picture of your behaviors when you are in your most comfortable place in life. So whatever is most relaxing for you, where you're just being Haynes. Adapted is who you are when you go out into the world. And so for you now, Haynes, that's when you go to work, because it's most of your time is at work. This would say there's very little change. This would say Haynes is the same when he's most comfortable and when he goes to work. The biggest change here, and it's not even that much, the S goes down. And so what that tells me is when you're home and relaxed, so you've got a higher S, you like a slower pace at home, and work feels like it speeds you up a little bit. Now, again, it's not much. It's only a little bit, but that would say work speeds you up just a little bit because the S goes down. Okay. So Haynes, you are what's called as CS. CS. You're that if you ever, it's kind of the DISC language. You're a CS. High compliance, high policy, right way to do everything. S is don't change my world. I want a routine. I want to go to the same place every time. I want to live in the same place forever. If we go out to eat, I'd like to go somewhere we know we've been to. If we go on vacation, I want to go somewhere that's slow and probably the same place every time. You know, going to the lake is probably comfortable for you, and it's where you would want to go over lots of other things or whatever. Right now, Peyton, let's see your
Haynes, do you agree with that so far?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Peyton, yours is the S actually comes first, which would
Your D is not.
which would mean on tasks and people, you're not as high on tasks as maybe you plotted yourself a little bit too high on tasks. But it's still pretty close. It's still pretty close. So you're what's called an SCI. So pace and comfort is the most important thing to you, with policy and procedure next. Okay. Now, 1.3%, no, sorry, 1.7% of people that take DISC. Let me say it a different way first, so this will stand out. 98.3% of people that take DISC have 2 above the midline, a primary and a secondary. Mine's DI, mom's is SI, Haynes's is CS, right? That's what we mean by 2 above the midline. 98.3%. 1.7% have 3 or 4 above. Okay. And that's not necessarily a badge of honor. That's not a badge of honor. What it means is we've talked a little bit about this last week. I think Peyton, we've talked with you with this report before.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're trying to do a lot of things. You're trying to be all things, right? This is where you feel the pressure of staying downstairs and socializing and hanging around. The S would say, I'd rather go to my room and retreat. The C then, because there's probably something to do, or there's a policy, or there's a thing to pay, or there's an email to return, or there's a thing, but you let that I creep up, and you feel a little bit of that social pressure. So you've got 3 above, and some people have 4 above.
But
A lot
those
of times
usually
those
like
are-
single moms,
Yeah,
right?
single mom, single
It
parent.
have to be everything. Does Peyton have a natural and adapted style?
Not on this report.
Okay. So. Peyton, do you agree with that?
Yeah.
So what I want you to start thinking about now is, and this is why I keep going back to the roadmap. This is why we talked about family systems and all of that stuff before. It's why we talked about EQ next, right? Because all of our stuff feeds into our mindset, right? It lives in here. All that stuff from the past. Peyton, all those moves for you. All those difficult days at Gulf Shores High School, Haynes, all your stuff, all that stuff lives in here. And every single morning we wake up and we walk out the front door. What comes next on the roadmap? How we think. What comes after that? How we behave. So we take the mindset into the world. We know how we think is triggers, emotions, and responses, right? Well, guess what? As we play that out, and we think about those responses that we just talked about, they probably look like your disc. Example, how did you respond, Peyton, to the Daniel thing, or how did you respond to other triggers that have happened? You tend to retreat, right? It would make sense that the S would be your highest. You see how EQ handshakes with disc?
Hmm.
Okay, your behaviors are an outcome. The behaviors are what we can see. Okay, we can't see emotional intelligence because it's happening in here, and then the responses play out, and the behaviors are what we can see. So the EQ assessment measures what was going on in here. Remember this? DISC measures what we do about it and how we behave, how we communicate, how we walk and talk, all those kind of things. So that's how you kind of play it all out. If you think of other triggers, it probably is very, very similar. Think about emotions that are, those 7 emotions, something happens, those 7 emotions.
So if Haynes' primary is a C, how would that typically play out in his life?
Well, and Haynes, I want you to speak up on this. Okay. My guess is I know you well enough to say I'm probably dancing around the truth on this. I may be close, but I don't want to make an unfair judgment. So you jump in. I'm not trying to label or judge. I want you to clarify this. But if there's a struggle with contempt, the possibility, I say possibility because I'm not trying to label, is that he's come to the conclusion in his mind that that's something Peyton shouldn't worry about.
Why do you say that?
Because C
It's
is
C.
because there's right
There's a
and wrong.
right way.
There's a right way and a wrong way, and that was so small, and it's why, and I've got, remember, I'm a high D, and D's and C's have some similarities. We just think we're right. We think we're right about everything, and Haynes has even said, I've on this call, not only does he think he's right, he has a history of being right.
Which
Haynes
makes
has
it
said that,
worse.
right? Right. If you look, I'm usually am right. That's kind of what Haynes has said in the past, and I'm not arguing that. I'm not saying that you're wrong about that. What I'm saying is, and y'all got to catch this, okay? Is that when that then spills onto Peyton. Okay, so let's use this scenario. Peyton's upset about the Daniel joke thing. It triggers Haynes to some degree, but at some point in there, Haynes decides this is not that big a deal, and Haynes thinks he's right that this is not that big of a deal. How willing is he going to be a safe place for Peyton to unpack? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Again, I'm not saying that's exactly how it played out or that it's going to play out. I'm just talking about.
you're talking about based on the
C's.
fact that he's a C.
That's right.
If he's not careful, that's what would be
Right.
natural.
He
for
would
him.
come to the conclusion, I'm talking again, generally C's, not
No,
him.
you're right. You're right. I mean, you're.
I'm just trying not to label. I'm being, right.
Well, and so if let's go through the disc really quick. So a D
Hey.
would,
Did that answer your question? C's think they're right, and so they tend to dismiss because
Other
the
people.
other person's wrong. And if they're wrong and they're getting all fired up about it, what does it have to do with me? I mean, why don't they just do it right?
okay,
Right? That's kind of what C's and D's does. Here, D's are even worse, and I'll tell you why. The difference between it's just embarrassing to say. C's know there's a right way to do it, like there's a recipe or there's a owner's guide or an operations manual or whatever, and there's a right way. D's think there's a right way to do it. It's my way, right? Right? I don't need a
Yeah.
book. Like I don't follow recipes because I know how to make blah 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 whatever better than, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing, you know. And that's even more dangerous because D's want to do it. And the reason, here's the difference. D's share the I, C's share, D's and C's share, but D shares the I, C's share the S, which means D's want to do it faster, C's want to do it slower. So D's think they're right about everything. And now let's move on to something else fast. That's why I don't need a recipe. I don't need the book. I don't need the guide because I want to do this fast and go on to something else. C's want to get it right, but they're more slower and to the point. So they'll follow the plan. Okay. But they come to this conclusion that they're right. And that's why they won't lean into other people emotionally because they think they're right and the other person's wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I was just thinking if that same scenario, how would a D act, an I act, an S act, and a C act?
Correct.
A D, what do y'all know about D's?
In
What
the
do you think-
moment, you're saying in the moment
the
the
moment.
joke is made.
in the moment the joke is made, what would a D do? A high D like that.
Given we don't know the
Yeah. we don't know,
situation,
But
but
just that there was something,
we're picturing everybody's getting off the boat, unloading or unloading the truck or whatever, and there's something said.
what would a D do?
Call him out on it. I don't know.
They like to fight and they like conflict, so bring it. Like, yeah, it's going down.
Or I'm gonna give it back.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give him something back.
It's not gonna be held in. Okay.
You're
What,
yeah.
what would an I do? I's the influencer, the one that has a million friends that just loves people and
Laugh at it. I don't know.
They would call everybody in the world except Daniel and start talking about it.
Cameron.
Do you
Yeah.
believe Jen, hey
Mhm.
Jen, you know, or do you believe what let me tell you what Daniel said to me, blah, 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 you know, and then they tell everybody in the world because they're gonna talk about it.
but they don't
They're
deal
gonna
with
talk
it.
about it, but they're not gonna deal with it.
And then the S, like we said, is gonna hold it in and suppress it. And the C is gonna,
The C will hold it in, but make it a note in their mental bank and it becomes a grudge later or a payback later kind of thing.
like, note taker.
Like we will right this wrong later.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. So far, what do y'all think?
Pretty right on target.
Okay.
Yeah.
so
These-
here's the question, and I
I
know
don't completely dismiss you off the rip.
No. You're not saying you do. You're saying that could be like your tendency.
It's my tendency if I like my first reaction is this something I need to be concerned with? Like if it's not, then I feel like she should get over it. And that's where the C comes in. But if it
Okay.
is, I want like
Yeah.
I'm immediately trying to
Yeah.
figure it.
so
He's aware of it.
you just said what I was trying to say way better because you're a C. But do you see what he said? He's labeled it, whether he thinks it's justifiable or not.
And then he decides what to do at that point.
Right. And what I'm saying is my caution to you, just as we've cautioned Peyton about not, letting it all stuffing it in. My caution to you would be just because you've come to that conclusion doesn't mean that that's the best conclusion for someone else. The other person is wired differently than you, and the other person it may be a bigger deal to the other person for some other factor that's true about them, but not true about you. Remember, their roadmap is all different than yours. So you've come to the conclusion of the importance level, which I completely agree. I do this. We all do the same thing, but you've come to that conclusion through your lens, and your lens comes from your roadmap. To the other person, they may have a different lens, and it may make it a different importance level. And that's where the ego people, C's and D's, are high ego people. That's where we have to be careful, and that's where we get ourselves in trouble, is when we come to a conclusion about an importance level without giving credit to the fact they may have a different lens than we have. And it's hard to remember in that moment because it's so clear to us as to what that importance level is, about how big of a deal it is. The problem is maybe, and I have no idea, maybe there's something in that joke that triggered a memory from Peyton when she was 14 years old. And see, Haynes, you know nothing about that. You don't have any ability to know that he triggered. I'm making this up.
Yeah, even Peyton might not.
Right. Even Peyton might not know that it was triggered. That's why I'm saying the ego people, the D's and the C's, we got to be careful. We got to be careful coming to conclusions about priorities for other people, because we don't have the lenses they have.
And I think this is similar to Enneagram as far, not in the way it's done or this is a very valid test. It's backed by science and it's an expensive test to take. Very valuable. But what I was going to say is, when you study Enneagram, there's a healthy 2 and there's a healthy 3. The same thing with DISC. There's a healthy D, there's a healthy I, a healthy S, and a healthy C. But we all can tend to go too far if we stay in our zone too much. But we can learn healthy ways to cope, is what I'm saying. A D can learn when they need to back off. An S can learn how to confront things. A C can learn how to ask more questions, and an I can learn how to take things directly to the person. But it takes learning that. It takes learning that and knowing that there's a healthy version of a D and there's an unhealthy version of a D. Because we need Ds, we need leaders. They're strong leaders, right? We need all of those things. We need all the I, S, and the C. We need all of them.
So the question I've asked, and I'll ask it again tonight, is, so what does this mean for a couple that's preparing for marriage? What do you do with this? In addition to, I hope you'll keep these assessments forever, and I hope you'll read them on and off and remind yourselves of your EQ scores and your DISC profile. But what does it mean? What do you do with it? What is this information tonight? How does this help you prepare for marriage?
It makes you aware of your tendencies in a healthy way to go about it.
Yeah. Now convert that into what I'll do with it is, like, tell me what Haynes is going to do with it. Peyton, tell me what Peyton's going to do with it. Make some statements. This is going to help me blank.
I mean, I'd like to learn more about how S and C's interact in a relationship with each other, because I like doing that with the Enneagram, like how our types are in relationships with each other. But I mean, I think it just, when something happens, it helps you have a better understanding of like how the other person sees the world and sees a situation. So you can be more like empathetic and understanding.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Haynes.
I just kind of reiterate what I said earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what.
If y'all haven't done so, and Peyton specifically, take a close look at Haynes's report. And the reason I say that is because he's got the full version. And there is a lot of information. It's way more information in Haynes's than in yours, because you took it's more of the career planning version of it.
Mm-hmm.
But in Haynes's, there's sections on how to communicate, do's and don'ts. Do say this, don't say this, all that there's a lot of that kind of stuff in his. If you find it helpful, we could put you through the full version. probably would come back with the same graphs, but you would get all that text for yours as well. So just take a look at Haynes's and see if it would be
Okay.
helpful.
Because it'll say for Haynes, it'll say, like when you're talking to him, you need to do this, but don't say this, or it is so helpful when you look at that and you're married to somebody like Todd's being a D. When I send him text, he wants bullet points. He doesn't want, hey, how's your day going? That's an S or an I. He doesn't want any of that. He wants me to get to the point. So I love that. And Todd, I think it is valuable because
Yeah.
it is literally, if you say, I wish my spouse had what do you call that thing that's in your car that you, when you buy a car? It has a, what in the glove box? What's it called?
The owner's manual.
Owner's manual. It's like having an owner's manual for your spouse. I'm not kidding. Like it just helps you communicate with them so much better. And the other thing I want to notice too is the one that y'all have in common is S. So what is that gonna do for y'all's relationship?
We like routine. We like consistency.
It's
You
gonna
like,
make it easy. It's
yeah.
gonna make it a lot easier than if one of y'all was an S and one of you were a D. That's us, and we constantly struggle with pace and routines and stuff like that. The beauty is y'all are both like that naturally. So it's just gonna be, the day-to-day is just gonna be easier for y'all, which is a blessing. So that's awesome. Yes, y'all both like things to be comfortable, you like things to be happy in your environment, and you like routines. So that's awesome. Y'all may live in the same house for 82 years, but that's
We're saying
good.
that probably forever.
Cause y'all both be happy, so it's all good. Okay, what else?
Well, let's talk about what's next.
Oh yeah.
Boundaries. They'll talk out the next couple of weeks. Not we have to lock in, but just kind of talk about what it might look like.
You're missing the next two.